Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rob. Welcome to The Savage Body, and today I want to talk to you about what seems to be the most effective way of managing chronic low back pain. What is it? I'll give you a hint. I love it more than anything else. I can't stop talking about it. It's not fried chicken. Close. You may have heard me describe it as the fountain of youth, and the paper that I'm referring to strokes my bias the way an evil villain strokes his pet laser cat. Hey, also before we kick off, like and subscribe and share this, especially share this with somebody that has low back pain. This stuff is important. People gotta know this stuff. Let me help you out. I'll pause it for you. It's very hot in here. I'm wearing a collared shirt. It's 1,000 degrees right now, and these lights are so very, very bright. Hello, birds. Folks, I'm holding in my hands a paper entitled Posterior Chain Resistance Training Compared to General Exercise and Walking Programs for the Treatment of Chronic Low Back Pain in the General Population, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. This is a good one. This paper is by Tatarin, Seamus, Catterall, Furness, and Kjog.
Gesundheit.
Thanks. It was published in 2021. Hot off the press, steaming fresh. Beautiful. You gotta love fresh research, right?
Yeah, boy.
As defined by the authors, posterior chain resistance exercises are exercises and movements that target muscles located in the thoracic, lumbar, and posterior hip regions that were agonists for hip extension, lumbar and or thoracic extension, shoulder extension, scapular downward rotation, scapular elevation, and scapular retraction. So exercises that target the muscles running up and down the backs of your legs, your hips, your spine, and your shoulders. Calves, hamstrings, glutes, paraspinals, lower, middle, and upper trapezius, rhomboids, levator scapula, lats. God, what a beautiful machine, isn't it great? So what does posterior chain resistance training, which I'm gonna call PCRT from now on for the sake of brevity, look like? Well, you have the obvious squats and deadlifts and all their bitchin' variations, all the way up to ILEX, shrugs, rows, kettlebell swings, pull-ups, leg curls, leg press, calf raises, Superman variations, and the criminally underloaded bird dog. I don't like that exercise all that much. It's got its place, but let's not pretend like it's a real serious exercise. Not when deadlifts are in the room! So the purpose of this study was to compare the effects of PCRT and GE for the treatment of CLBP in the ICP, no, at the ODB. How about I just read the objectives that they state in the article, huh? As written in the article, the objectives were to determine if chronic posterior chain resistance training, defined as exercise programs of greater than or equal to 6 weeks duration focused on the thoracic, lumbar, and hip extensor musculature, is more effective than general exercise in improving pain, level of disability, muscular strength, and the number of adverse events in recreational activity and sedentary individuals with chronic low back pain, CLBP. Basically, the question is getting after it more effective for improving people's outcomes with chronic low back pain than general exercise or walking programs? Well, what do you think they found in the research? Why do you think I love this fucking article so much? The results of the article were this. Both PCRT and GE were effective in improving a number of CLBP related outcomes, but these effects were often significantly greater in PCRT than GE, especially with greater training durations, i.e. 12 to 16 weeks compared to 6 to 8 weeks. Specifically, when compared to GE, PCRT demonstrated a greater reduction in pain and level of disability, as well as a greater increase in muscle strength, period. No differences in the number of adverse effects were reported between PCRT and GE. Well, gosh, that's kind of compelling, wouldn't you say? So essentially what that means is, for a shorter training duration, PCRT and GE or walking programs have about the same sort of outcomes for pain and disability. But for a long-term plan, you're gonna get better results from posterior chain resistance training, PCRT, and on top of that, you're also gonna get stronger. And on top of that, it's a better lifestyle. How many times do I have to say that resistance training is the fountain of youth, dude? To conclude the article, the authors dropped 3 key points. Point number 1, posterior chain resistance training is more effective in reducing pain and disability and improving muscle strength in patients with chronic low back pain than general exercise. Well, yeah, of course it's gonna make you stronger. And by growing stronger, people become less disabled and experience less pain. If you're weak, you're more likely to be disabled. That's just the facts, that's how things are. If I get a shirt that's got weak stitches, I'm more likely to blow it out than a shirt that's got strong stitches. If you're a person that hasn't been training their connective tissues and their muscles in their body to withstand high forces, to be more tolerant of that kind of stress, then yeah, you're more likely to be disabled. Resistance training, if done properly and progressed appropriately, is the art of learning how to seek out the suck and to embrace the suck. Remember how the last 2 reps of every set are supposed to suck? And how you're supposed to chase that down always and forever? So resistance training is training yourself to follow misery. Turns out if you seek out misery, you become resistant to it. And more resilient. A booyah. Do people still say booyah? Booyah. The author's second key point is this. Posterior chain resistance training does not have more adverse events than general exercise in patients with chronic low back pain. Resistance training is safe. It's so safe. And not only is it safe, it's the opposite of unsafe, right? It makes your tissues stronger. It makes you reinforced. It turns you into a reinforced human being. It makes you more resilient. It makes you less susceptible to trauma and injuries. It makes you anti-fragile. You're coating yourself in bio-armor. An armor made of your body. Man, ain't that compelling. The third point is this, and stick with me here. Clinicians should consider prescribing 12 to 16 weeks of posterior chain resistance training to maximize outcomes in patients with chronic low back pain. Okay, so if you're not a clinician, what does this mean? It means that your best bet, whether you're a clinician or not, whether you're in PT or not, for overcoming chronic low back pain or hardening your body against chronic low back pain is to find a posterior chain resistance program, which can just be a normal resistance training program that includes squats or deadlifts or pull-ups or rows, and do that for 3 to 4 months. Or, here's an idea, just work out. Just be one of those people that works out. Just become a person that works out. You don't have to stop at 3 or 4 months. Why stop at all? We know resistance training is the fountain of youth. We know it's the key to successful aging. So why prescribe a half measure? We know that one of the best predictors of injury is a previous injury. Hurt your back? Gotcha. Here's my prescription to you. A lifetime of dedicating 3 hours a week to the god of strength at the Temple of Iron. Otherwise, you can stop doing your posterior chain resistance training program after 3 or 4 months. You can do that. You can do whatever you want. But that's the same sort of thing as in the horror movies when they get away from the bad guy and they shut the door in their face and they're like, oh, thank God I'm safe. And then here's chronic low back pain. Yeah, baby, yeah, chronic low back pain, baby, yeah. Woo! There's some other cool points that they raise in this study that I think are worth touching. Resistance training induces hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. Hypertrophy is very important for people that have chronic low back pain because people with chronic low back pain tend to move through the world in ways that do not load the muscles of their low back. So if you have chronic low back pain, you're more likely to have atrophy in the areas that are targeted by posterior chain resistance training. So the thing about resistance training for hypertrophy, however, is that the majority of strength gains in the first 2 to 8 weeks of any training program are not typically from hypertrophy. Rather, they're from neural adaptations and alterations in neural input. So, about the first 2 months of any kind of strength program is not making you bigger. It makes you stronger, not bigger, so it doesn't reverse the atrophy that you'll experience if you have chronic low back pain because you've been avoiding loading this for so long. If your goal is to really get out of that gutter of chronic low back pain, you have to stick with it for longer than 2 months at the very least. And then what? You're gonna stop at 3 months when you've only had a month of hypertrophy training? Okay, but no. Come on. Are you serious about fixing your chronic low back pain or not? Do you want it to go away or do you want to half-ass it? I'm not gonna judge one way or another. Like, I get it. I understand the work and the dedication it takes, but if you want to live a better life, see if you can do something about that pain in a meaningful way that's not just slapping a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Here's another really interesting point that they make in the paper. They find correlationally that a stronger bench press can improve your outcomes with chronic low back pain. I know, I said it. Correlation does not mean causation. I also know that the minute you shoulder the burden of your own personal health and fitness, things tend to start getting better for you. Here's a question that you've been dying to ask, probably all day, maybe since yesterday. Rob, how do you use PCRT to treat your CLBP? Well, I got it for you. You wanna hear it? This is not medical advice. If you have back pain, go get it looked at. I'm a YouTube guy doing YouTube stuff. If your back pain is, say, above a 6 out of 10 consistently, if it started recently with a traumatic event like a fall or an impact, if you have pain radiating down your legs, numbness and tingling in the saddle region, bowel or bladder incontinence that is linked to your low back pain, or profound weakness of your legs that seems to be somehow related to your low back pain, for the love of God, go see your doctor. and sort yourself out. But if you just have a stiff old shitty feeling back, again, none of this is medical advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. But here's the easy way to use PCRT to treat CLBP. It's gonna be a simple workout of 3 exercises. It's gonna be 1 upper body pull, which can be a band or a cable row. It can be an inverted row. It can be a pull-up. It can be weighted pull-ups. It can be even more weighted pull-ups. It can be even heavier weighted pull-ups. 1 hip hinge, which is gonna include squats, deadlifts, kettlebell swings, Olympic lifts, and 1 ILEX, isolated lumbar extension exercise, which is gonna be a Superman progression, a supported open kinetic chain lumbar extension, incline lumbar extension, seated lumbar ILEX, or a Jefferson curl. When you're starting out, you should be taking it easy. Go slow, use light loads, and just see what you get. As you gain mastery, you're going to upgrade the easier exercises to more advanced, complex movements, and then you're also going to gradually increase the resistance. If Romanian deadlifts with 135 pounds is too easy, 145. And from there, you're just building up a head of steam. This is a lifetime kind of program. 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions of each exercise. You're gonna take about a minute, maybe 2 minutes rest in between each set. The last 2 to 3 repetitions of every set should be tough, very tough, but not so tough that your technique completely falls apart. And you're gonna do this maybe 2 to 3 days a week. So if I'm doing this workout, it's gonna look like this. You start with the heaviest lifts and you work towards the lighter lifts. So you're gonna start with your heavy hip hinge, which for me is gonna look like barbell squats. 3 sets of 10, I'm gonna rest a minute in between, and then I'm gonna move on to my next thing. After the hip hinge, I'm gonna do my upper body pull. For simplicity's sake, let's just say I'm gonna do a dumbbell row. I'm gonna do 3 sets of 10, I'm gonna rest a minute or 2 in between each set, and then I'm gonna move on to my final exercise, which is gonna be an ILEX. For simplicity's sake, let's say I'm gonna do an incline lumbar extension. I'm gonna do 3 sets of 10, I'm gonna rest a minute or 2 in between each set, and then I'm done. I mean, this can just be part of your normal workout. If you're going to the gym, you're probably already doing this stuff anyway. And also, if you're using PCRT to treat your CLBP, I recommend getting a journal, get a little notebook, carry it with you, mark down your numbers, mark down the days that you're working out, so you can kind of track yourself as you're moving forward. Like I said, it's a progressive workout program. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you came from. If you don't remember the past, you're gonna have a misguided future. Communists. All right, folks, that's it. That's all I got. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody that has chronic low back pain or that likes dudes in Hawaiian shirts that shout a lot. If you have a question or concern, leave a comment down below. I'm in my office all day, every day. Always happy to help. Okay. Enlighten the mind, elevate the spirit, and make savage the body. Oh, yeah.